Welcome to this week's episode of the Ask the R podcast. You probably clicked on this video because you've paid for a tree report before and you thought, what the heck have I just bought? Half the time it's jargon-filled nonsense that doesn't even answer the question that your planning officer asked you. In this video, I'm breaking down what makes a good tree report, the kind that actually gets your application approved, and that one red flag that tells you it's been written by somebody who's never before dealt with a planner. Hi folks, welcome to this week's Ask the R podcast, and in this week we're going to be talking about why most tree reports are useless and how to spot a bad one. But first, this. Hi folks, it's time for You Couldn't Plan It, the feature where me and my team have scoured the internet for stupid, silly and downright infuriating planning related facts. Let's go. Yes folks, planning related facts. I really need to sort that out. This week we are talking about, it's another old one that I found on Wikipedia, but I think it is worth revisiting because it's very funny. And I will get young Kian to put a photo of this bad boy up on the screen if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're not, you really need to go to Wikipedia and or just to Google and search for the Headington Shark. And this, as its name suggests, was a rooftop sculpture that was at 2 New High Street at a village called Headington in Oxfordshire, England. And it's basically, it's a large shark embedded headfirst in the roof of a house. It was some protest art, funnily enough, that was put up without permission to be symbolic of bombs crashing into buildings. And this goes right back to 1986. And it was an American-born radio presenter who did this to his house. And it says here, and I'm going to read this verbatim, John Buckley came up with the idea while drinking wine on the street. So, he imagined the shark as a metaphor for falling bombs, specifically from the American warplanes that flew overhead on their way to bomb Libya. So he had this shark designed, created, installed with the help of a local carpenter. And the shark was to express someone feeling totally impotent and ripping a hole in their roof out of a sense of impotence and anger and desperation. There we go. So this dates back to the days of, CND, nuclear power, Chernobyl, all that kind of good stuff. So this was a painted fiberglass sculpture that weighed 200 kilograms and it was 7.6 meters long, so it was massive. It took 3 months to build, and the structure is in deliberate contrast with what is otherwise an ordinary suburban setting. As you can imagine, this did not go down well with the local authority, and this actually became the subject of a 6-year battle between Oxford City Council and the homeowner. The council originally attempted to remove the shark on grounds of safety, and then argued for its removal due to a lack of proper planning. So, as you can imagine, he did eventually have to remove that, but this went on for decades. In 2016, Oxford City Council began efforts to protect the shark by placing it on a list controlled by Historic England. It's just absolutely nuts, this, isn't it? I'm just going through the timeline here to see whether he ever had to actually remove it. And it doesn't seem to... I'm just seeing if there's a reference here, because that'd be brilliant. If it's still there to this day, I don't think it is. I don't think it is. So there we go. Giant sharks, headfirst, embedded in a house. I'm not sure any of our listeners are looking to do that. So back to the episode. I think first off, if we're going to start throwing mud at a tree survey, we need to understand exactly what a tree survey is. So what is a tree survey? A tree survey is required whenever your development has the potential to affect trees or hedges. People often ask me, well, my tree's not protected, so I don't need it surveyed. It's irrelevant when it comes to planning. In fact, actually, if a tree needs to be removed for planning, that actually overrides a tree protection order. It's very, very difficult to do that. But, the local authority don't know what the condition of your trees are necessarily. So it could well be that the first time you have it surveyed for a planning application is the first time we realise that there's something critically wrong with the tree from a health and safety perspective. You may be made to plant a new tree in its place, but So a tree survey is basically where somebody comes out to site, having done a desktop assessment first. They will pick up measurements on all trees on or adjacent to the red line boundary of your site. So trees within the site. What is a tree? Anything bigger than your fist at chest height essentially is a tree. Hedges are pretty self-explanatory. They'll collect lots of data on those trees, and that will enable them to construct what's known as a tree constraints plan. And that tree constraints plan will graphically show the above ground and the below ground constraints to development at that site. People often think it's just about the roots. It's not just about the roots, it's about the crown spread of the tree as well. To give you an example, if you had a big lime tree on the edge of your development site, and maybe you had to put a car park in and a house quite near it, and this happens all the time, lime trees drop all sorts of horrible residue, and that would put undue pressure on that tree for unsympathetic pruning into the past. So it's things like that the tree survey looks at. What does good look like and bad? Well, good looks like a tree survey that considers all trees on and adjacent to the site. It would have the trees accurately mapped and measured. So in an ideal world, our arboricultural consultants here within my company, what they really want is a topographical survey before they go to site, because that picks up the point of that tree accurately. If you don't have that base topographical survey, then the ARB surveyors either have to guesstimate within a couple of meters, and that could be crucial, or they will have to do a degree of measuring, and they're not topographical surveyors, tree people, they're not. They're there to look at the trees, so you need a good topographical survey to base your survey off of. What else does good look like? Well, in order to produce a really good high quality tree constraints plan, an AutoCAD drawing of your proposals, what are you proposing to build on site? Those drawings need to be accurate, they need to be aligned to an ordnance survey grid, and the more accurate it is, the better. We get a lot of hand-drawn plans, and that makes it very, very difficult to draw accurate measurements and assess the impacts on the tree, and ultimately that might mean that you're going to get pushback from the local planning authority. So that's what good looks like. What does bad look like? Plans that aren't drawn to the British standard, reports that are nothing but the arboricultural data tables and the plan, and they don't really discuss the site in its wider context. How do trees interact with that site? What value do they have at that site? So it's not just about the raw data. There has to be a good, deep, comprehensive report to support that. What do you need to submit? Well, to submit to the local planning authority, what you really need is you need your tree constraints plan, you need your arboricultural data tables, you need a desktop study, background research on the site, what the site history is, and some good robust information about the site and surroundings. So all of that goes into one report. The tree officer at the local authority, we discussed this a few episodes ago, but the easier you can make their job, the better, by giving them top quality information in a way that they can very easily look and see how your development is going to interact with trees on the site, and to assess that your arboricultural consultant really has deeply thought about this, and they've thought about how the trees are going to be affected through the construction phase and beyond as well. If you're going to build a block of flats and there's some trees, maybe the trees are a significant distance away, but they're going to restrict light fall through the windows. Well, what are the residents going to do? They're going to want the trees cut in half. So that's something that could, that would need to be considered. Sometimes, not always, but if you are going to affect the trees, above or below ground. The other thing that you need to submit is an arboricultural method statement and tree protection plan. Sometimes that's conditioned, but often it's better to provide that up front, and that shows that you've thought about how the retained trees are going to be protected through the development phase and beyond. So that's that. So what next? Next, we've got this. You've got the questions, the planning system's a nightmare. We have got the answers. Welcome to the Planning Permission Panic Line. Yes, folks, planning permission panic line. And I don't think we've got any tree ones here this week. We've mostly got ecology ones, but that's pretty much relevant to everybody, isn't it? So let's have a look. So Jared in Southampton wants to know, what does a precautionary method statement mean and when do we need one? So a precautionary working method statement. I've just highlighted that with the wrong one. A precautionary working method statement, quite the mouthful, isn't it? So if it has been found that there are not protected species at the site, but there is the potential for it to support them, then a precautionary working method statement may well be a sensible and pragmatic way to ensure that you don't fall foul of wildlife legislation. So, for instance, that may be that your property had one slip tile and it's not proportionate to do a whole suite of bat surveys, and therefore a precautionary working method statement for bats would be conditioned on your planning consent, and that would mean that the ecologist would put a report together that basically explains how the work will be carried out, probably under a watching brief, to ensure that protected species aren't harmed. The same with things like reptiles and great crested newts and things like that. So it might be that if you've got an area of vegetation that needs to be removed, that vegetation would be removed in sections, both in terms of height and width as well, to give reptiles a chance to disperse off the site. So it's not relevant to everybody, Jared. It's usually only relevant to very specific cases. I'm not really sure that helps you there, but. Claire in Colchester says, we've been told we can't work during nesting season. How strict is that rule? Well, we have to start with what the offence is. So the offence is basically, and it doesn't matter what the species is, and this is in relation to nesting birds. So from March to September, essentially, it is a offence to disturb the nesting place or resting place of a nesting bird. So what can you do? Well, you can either make sure that your vegetation removal works is done between October and February, or you get somebody to check it first. So it's not that you can't do the work, it's that you need to make sure you don't affect nesting birds. So what normally happens is an ecologist will come out to site, they'll be there, they'll do a pre-works check. If there's no bird nests and no evidence of birds nesting, you can crack on. And if the work is going to take quite a while, then it may be that you have to have the ecologist on site for 2 or 3 days a week, whatever it might be. If the works are only going to take a day, you would usually have the ecologist do the nesting bird checks literally the day before the works are carried out. But it depends on the time of year. So it's not so much how strict is the rule, because it's not a rule, it's law, Wildlife and Countryside Act. You just need to make sure you do things in the right area. Got another one here. Ben in Cardiff asks, and this has gone into my sales team, so it's a bit specific to us, I'm afraid, but he basically says, can you do the ecology report without visiting the site if we send you drone footage and maps? No, is the answer. Unless you're an ecologist, Ben, no. We will almost always, unless it's a brownfield site, there's no vegetation at all, we will have to send somebody out to site, having done a desktop study, because they're looking for potential, not just presence or absence. So yeah, we can certainly help you assess the site at a high level by looking at any drone footage you've got, maps, photographs and things like that. But otherwise, we need to come to site. So that is planning permission panic line. So just to wrap this one up, really, folks, tree reports. If you want approvals faster, then really you need to stop blaming the person with the least power in the whole process. You need to get better data and clearer plans, and have really good conversations early in the process. The bottleneck generally isn't the tree officer. It tends to be the planning system that they are stuck in. Next time you commission a tree survey, make sure you ask for a tree constraints plan that actually ties into the design and is accurate, plain English recommendations, and make sure there's a sign-off and conclusion in there that's crystal clear and it meets the British standard BS 5837. Anything less, frankly, is just wallpaper for the wall. So maybe if you've ever had a tree report that's not gone according to plan, drop us a little comment, let us know how it all went wrong, and maybe we could help fix some of the nonsense that is out there. So that's it from me this week. If you've liked what you've listened to here, then a wee cheeky subscribe would be really helpful. It helps us get the message out there and help more people like you get their planning back on track. The only other thing that I need to do at this stage is say that we are upping our YouTube games. There's a lot of videos coming out at the moment. If you're watching this on YouTube, you may well get suggested the next one in the series. We'll go and have a look at that. There's some long form video content there of me out on site helping people like you respect and protect the environment. So there we go. That's it from me, and I'll speak to you on the next one.